Greetings, everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I am so glad you're here. Thanks for tuning in. Tonight, we'll be reading Marcus Garvey and the Vision of Africa, pages 247 through 255. Garvey, in his own words, an answer to his critics.
Greetings. My name is the Revolutionary Matron, and my show is called The Learning Curve. I broadcast on a network called KWAZ Radio. There are other hosts on the network I'd like you to meet.
Greetings, everyone. This is Koku from the Bitter Medicine Podcast, inviting you to tune in to the Bitter Medicine Podcast on KWAZ Radio.
Peace, family. This is Oni, inviting you to listen to the Pro-Black Perspective, where black problems are addressed with black solutions.
This is D Webb with the Harsh Reality Podcast, asking you to tune in where we tackle the news of the day that affects our community, only on KWAZ Radio.
The views, thoughts, and opinions expressed here belong solely to the respondents, and they do not necessarily reflect any broadcast networks, affiliates, nor sponsors. The Learning Curve is a broadcast created for the benefit of my global community. Black is a consciousness. Content is being used for our commentary, research, criticism, education, scholarship, teaching, preaching, and news reporting. No copyright infringement is intended. I will make enunciation mistakes. I will give you my opinion about the information. And if you ever ask, I will send you my source.
Thanks for tuning in, Oni, from the Pro-Black Perspective. I know that Forecast is tuning in, Sister Raw is tuning in, Fawana Haguziki is tuning in, Afro Native is tuning in, Brother Bakari is tuning in, and so many others. Today, we are reading Marcus Garvey in his own words, an answer to his many critics, pages 247 through 255 of the text. Immediate release. The following letter is released at the American headquarters of the Universal Negro Improvement Association, 525456 West 135th Street, New York City, to the white press of the world by Marcus Garvey as an explanation of the aims and objects of the Universal Negro Improvement Association, of which he is President General. The editor. Sir, you have for quite some time been publishing news, letters, and other articles in your paper purporting to be information about the activities of the Universal Negro Improvement Association, to the Back to Africa movement. So named by critics, the Black Star Line Steamship Corporation and myself, but you have never been fair enough to give to the public and your readers the other side of the story of the picture you painted by you. It has been my policy not to pay any attention to prejudice and unfair criticism. And in that, I always believe that truth of any kind cannot be permanently crushed. But whilst I permanently still feel this way, a large number of my friends and well-wishers have far more than 1,000 times endeavored to have me place the association I represent in a proper light before the public so that the general misrepresentations of the movement can be clarified. I still would not have yielded but for the increasing demands made upon me by those whose interests I serve, and because this misrepresentation has been conveyed to a large number of your readers who seem to regard me as some hideous person who hates all white people. I am not blaming you for the stand you have taken against me and against the movement I represent, because I know that you have arrived at your conclusions through the misrepresentations made to you directly or indirectly by my enemies within my own race, who, being jealous of my success in assembling together more members of my race throughout this country and the world than any other person has done, have been and are endeavoring to misrepresent me to cause an opposition sentiment to develop what would eventually handicap and thwart the objects of the organization I am leading. The real function of the press is public service without prejudice or partiality, to convey the truth as it is seen and understood without favoritism or bias. You have already, by your many reports, published one side of my activities. I feel that you will be honest enough to now publish at least part of the other side. First of all, let me say that all that has been published about the Universal Negro Improvement Association and about me tending to show that there is any hatred of other people, any scheme for personal gain, any desire to stir up race antagonism, and that my organization tends to promote race friction are all false. The oft repeated statement that the movement is sponsored and supported by the ignorant and gullible is so frivolous that as to need no comment. Our movement reflects the highest intelligence of the race, and as proof of this, we have challenged and still challenge anyone within the race to debate our differences. No one has been manly enough out of the critics to accept the challenge. Among our bitterest critics and opponents are W.E.B. Du Bois, James Weldon Johnson, and their National Association for the Advancement of Colored People. Yet these persons have not the manhood to match the intelligence of their association with that of the Universal Negro Improvement Association by accepting the challenge. Our organization stands for the highest in racial ideals, yielding to all races the right to ascend to the loftiest peak of human progress and demanding for ourselves a similar privilege. Starting our organization in New York 4.5 years ago with 13 members, we have now grown into an approximate membership of 5 million people scattered all over the world, but principally in the United States of America, Canada, South and Central America, the West Indies, and Africa. It is because of the rapid growth and success of this organization that other Negroes have sought to defeat me by hostile propaganda in their own newspapers and with the misrepresentations they supply to the white press. Every effort among Negroes has been made and exhausted by my enemies to defeat me, and yet they have failed. Hence, they resort to the government and the white press for the accomplishment of this purpose. To repeat, it is not because I fear defeat or the sting of unfriendly or unfair criticism that I write to you, because I owe my success in organization to no one. I am not personally disturbed, but I would like the public to be correctly informed about the movement I represent. The Negro problem in America and elsewhere must be solved. We cannot do this by postponing the issue or by sidetracking it. We might as well face it now. Some Negroes, such as the faction of the mulatto W.E.B. Du Bois, believe that the problem will be solved by assimilation and miscegenation. At least they believe that the Black race will become, through social contact and intercourse, so mixed up with the white race as to produce a new type, probably like Du Bois himself, which will in time be the real American. It is for such a contingency that he and his associates are consciously or unconsciously working. We of the Universal Negro Improvement Association believe in a pure Black race, just as now all self respecting whites believe in a pure white race as far as that can be. We are conscious of the fact that slavery brought upon us the curse of many colors with one race, and that is no reason why we ourselves should perpetuate the evil. Hence, instead of encouraging a wholesale bastardy in the race, we feel that we should now set out to create a race type and standard of our own, which would not, in the future, be stigmatized by bastardy, but could be recognized and respected as the true race type anteceding even our own time. We believe that the Negro has at least a social, cultural, and political destiny of his own, and any attempt to make a white man of him is bound to fail in the end. In like manner, we believe that you cannot successfully make a Negro out of a white man, in that he too has at least a social, cultural, and political destiny of his own. Therefore, the fullest opportunity should be given to both races to develop independently a civilization of their own, meaning to not infer thereby that either race would not, in a limiting degree, become a part of the civilization of each without losing their respective racial, cultural, social, and political identities. If this can be done, then we feel that the Negro too should have a government of his own and not remain in the countries of whites to aspire for and to positions that they will never get under the rule of the majority group upon their merely asking for or demanding such positions by an accidental constitutional right. How far the two races will travel together socially, industrially, and politically in America before a serious civil clash ensues is the speculation of all earnest, thoughtful people. It is because I personally want to prevent such a clash that I am advocating the cause of the Universal Negro Improvement Association. My interest in the Negro peoples of America and of the world is purely racial because I feel proud of my race. I have the highest regard for the motherland of the race, and I see absolutely no reason why all Negroes should not be as proud of themselves as other races are. Now, let us look at the race problem reasonably. We are educating the Negro, the slave of the last century. He is so advanced educationally that he claims scholastic recognition everywhere. Place him in any school, college, or university, and he comes out with honors. In science, music, art, and literature, he is holding a place of equality with other races everywhere. His ability fits him no longer for the farm, cotton field, or plantation as a race. He seeks broader opportunities in every field. He is a citizen. He pays taxes. He observes the law. He supports the government. He applies for and seeks the position that attracts him. Why shouldn't I be president? He asks himself. I have the education and the ability. Why shouldn't I be governor of the state, mayor of the city, a judge of the Supreme Court, police commissioner, or president of the board of aldermen? Why shouldn't I be a chief clerk in Gimbel Brothers, Macy's, or Wanamaker's? Why shouldn't I be a conductor on the railroad or the Pullman car or tramp car service? Why shouldn't I be employed in all the useful and productive industries of the nation? All these are positions and jobs sought by the majority group of whites in America and elsewhere. As the Negro becomes more insistent on these demands for constitutional rights and privileges and threatens the more to compete with the white man for the job that the latter seeks and believes worthwhile having, then the inevitable conflict will come, and the group that is not strong enough to hold its own will go down, irrespective of the law and of the government, because the law and the government are but executive expressions of the sober will of the people. When the people, through prejudice or any mass opinion, become dissatisfied, the law and the government are no longer able to control them in their action. In this respect, I would refer you to the industrial riots of East St. Louis and Chicago, the political riot of Washington, and the commercial riot of Tulsa, Oklahoma. These things that the white majority want in their own countries, they will not yield to the Negro or to any other race, and that is natural. Those Negroes who are too lazy to work and lay the foundation for such a government are among those who criticize us. Pilgrim fathers we had in America before we enjoyed the delights of New York City, Chicago, or Boston. Pilgrim fathers we must have if Africa is to rise from her slumber and darkness. We of the Universal Negro Improvement Association are satisfied to be called ignorant and gullible in working toward this end. Greetings, Anthony McPhail. How are you tonight? And our last piece for tonight is called A Barefaced Colored Leader, published in the Black Man magazine, July of 1935, by Marcus Garvey. W.E.B. Du Bois is the most brazen fellow that one knows in Negro leadership. Because of the unfortunate mental condition of the masses of Negroes, this man, who secured many free scholarships to obtain his education, has consistently used his white education to mislead and humbug the millions of his race in the United States. The Negroes in America since emancipation have ever been looking for honest and upright leaders to point them to the way of political, economic, social, and general development. Du Bois offered himself immediately after he left Harvard, and the people were glad to receive him. But jealous as he was of every other Negro leader, his first effort was to attack the honest, upright, and useful leader, Booker T. Washington. By so doing, he divided American Negro opinion, and the confusion springing therefrom has continued up to the present. But Du Bois took pride and pleasure not only in attacking Booker Washington, but he has attacked and tried to discredit every other Negro leader of importance who has sprung up in America. The very fact that the man up to now has no program shows that he never intended any, and his profession of being a leader was only to deceive the American Negro and at the same time satisfy his white patrons who had the scheme to suppress an independent development of his race. It is good to make Du Bois speak for himself, And so it is good to quote him from an article he has written for the June 1935 number of Current History under the caption of A Negro Nation Within the Nation. Du Bois has the following confession to make. No more critical situation ever faced the Negroes of America than that of today. Not in 1830, nor in 1861, nor in 1867. More than ever, the appeal of the Negro for elementary justice falls on deaf ears. Now, here is a man who fought the program of the Universal Negro Improvement Association, tried to discredit its leaders, assisted to have him imprisoned and deported after the organization and its leaders stood boldly out in the United States for a program, which, if it were supported by men like Du Bois, as it was supported by a large number of the masses of Negroes, would have today placed the American Negro in a position not to be pitied, but to be admired, confessing the helplessness of the race. Can anyone believe in his sincerity? It is evident that his plan of action originally was to keep the Negro in a condition that would always necessitate the propaganda of complaint of which Du Bois seems to be a master. His National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, when he was active in it, stood for nothing else but complaint. It had no constructive program. It could only find usefulness in protesting against lynchings and discriminations. And in such an agitation, Du Bois occupied himself for more than a quarter of a century. Now the conditions have grown worse, so his job is still there for him to complain. Whilst there may be a few good white men in America, there is no white man in America honest enough, sympathetic enough, humane enough, liberal enough to really take up the Negro's cause and fight it to a successful conclusion for the race's benefit. Because in doing so, it would be creating displeasure to the masses of white men and women who have always claimed superiority over the Negro and felt that his place should be limited in the body politic. Those who can remember the activities of the Universal Negro Improvement Association in the United States and its great program of nationalism, coupled with genuine industrial and economic activities, will readily realize the difference between the association and the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People. When that association fought for wider opportunities for the Negro in America, it was with the view of warding off the terrible economic reactions that would come after the war. That was why ships were placed on the seas, factories were to be erected, and great industries to be promoted. The leaders foresaw the unfortunate position of the Negro in these years, but Du Bois did not care, and so he sabotaged the movement and would have hanged the leader if the white man was not even a little merciful. Now, let us listen to him again. In Current History, he says, long before the Depression, Negroes in the South were losing Negro jobs. Didn't we tell Du Bois that in 1917, 1918, 1920, up to 1925, those who doubt that we told him and the American Negroes that let them go to the volume known as Philosophy and Opinions of Marcus Garvey. And all the things that Du Bois is now confessing will be found in that volume as a warning to the Negroes in the United States. He goes on further in his article. He says, since 1929, Negro workers, like white workers, have lost their jobs, have had mortgages foreclosed on their farms and homes, have used up their small savings. But in the case of the Negro worker, everything has been worse in larger or smaller degree. The loss has been greater and more permanent. When Du Bois dies, he will go down in his grave to be remembered as the man who sabotaged the Liberian colonization scheme of the Negro, the man who opposed the American Negro launching steamships on the seas, the man who did everything to handicap the industrial and commercial propositions of the American Negro, the man who tried to wreck the industrial educational system of Tuskegee, the man who never had a good word to say for any other Negro leader, but who tried to down every one of them. And those were the words of Marcus Garvey. So as you can see, Marcus Garvey had a rebuttal. He felt like Du Bois was jealous of him. And when you read some of the criticisms of Garvey, there was a little bit of jealousy there. They felt like they should have been the ones that were able to galvanize the masses. But they didn't realize that highly intelligent people are often not super charismatic, and that charismatic people often need someone to work out the details. So they should have been working together the whole time. Did anyone have anything they wanted to add to this? Garvey and his critics, pocket watching with W.E.B. Du Bois, or Garvey coming back at him saying Du Bois was an enemy within? What do you guys think? I think that Garvey, although he blamed the Negro leaders, he also blamed the white people, but he was more forgiving of the white people, seemingly, because he would at least start a dialogue with white people that most Black people would find repugnant, whether it was the Ku Klux Klan or these editors at white magazines. Seemingly, um, he was open to having dialogue with these people, and he didn't take their criticisms that they published as personally as he took it when it was published by other Black thought leaders at that time. But I mean, then again, Du Bois did call him a short, barefaced, black, ugly man. So there's that. I appreciate each and every one of you for coming by today. Next time, which should be tomorrow at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we'll be reading Part 5, The Rebuilding of the Movement, 1927 to 1934, where we learn how Garvey tried to piece together his fractured movement after he went to jail. The forecast says, yeah, but they did worse than call him names. They did. They did way worse than call him names. And he needed to reconcile with that. So I appreciate you all for tuning in tonight. Thank you for bearing with me. I had to go visit my aunt, and time got away from me at the hospital. I am making it happen each and every day. So I have my first duty and responsibility to you. Thank you for welcoming me home and being here when I arrived. I value you. And I want to say thank you to the forecast, Sister Raw, Afro Native, Brother Bakari, Tinkerbell 87, and everyone else, and Bawana Haguziki, and everyone else that donates and contributes to this work that I do. I value each and every one of you, and every dollar that you donate goes to help myself, my family, and to increase the quality of the stream. So we're making it happen each and every day. The forecast says we are very forgiving of others. Imagine if we forgave ourselves and gave ourselves the same leeway. I agree with you. If we gave ourselves the same leeway that we give others, we would be a lot further along our path of nation building, because we seem to be of the mindset that someone that looks different from us is operating from a different place, from a place of ignorance, or a place that's not as blameworthy as someone that looks like us. We assume that the offenses lodged and levied against us by people that look like us are deliberate and intentional, and we don't give them that same grace. So we do have to be more forgiving of one another. Well, thanks for tuning in today, guys. I appreciate each and every one of you. I'll see you tomorrow at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for Part 5, The Rebuilding of the Movement, page 257. Peace, guys.